Hey YouTube, it's Xanthi here, and I thought I would talk about what you need in a basic starter kit for face-ups. On Patreon, I asked what people might like to know. So one of the questions I got was, what should I have in a basic starter kit, or what would you recommend? So I'm going to go over that today. You don't need much in a starter kit. I think it's easy to get overwhelmed and buy too much stuff that you really don't need when you're just starting out. I think when you're just starting out, probably what you want to do is just focus on simple sorts of face-ups, because you're still learning, so there's no need to sort of buy a massive kit of stuff that you're not even going to get around to using until you've mastered the basics. So I would say that you're going to need pencils, paints, and pastels, and you're going to need almost the same colours in each of those. So with the pencils, you will probably want to have a white, a black, a brown, and a red. And these are watercolour pencils. Now the brand doesn't matter too much. If you have the money and you want to buy an expensive, nice brand like Caran d'Ache, then go ahead. If you don't, then get something a little bit more affordable like Derwent. In the beginning, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference whether you have super high quality products or if you don't have super high quality products, because of course you've got to remember, you're learning. So you want to give yourself room to improve, and you don't know if maybe you'll hate watercolour pencils and you won't want to use them again, and maybe you'll just use exclusively paints, in which case if you spend a lot of money on very expensive watercolour pencils just to find out you don't like them, well, probably want to avoid that. And of course, if you're going to get watercolour pencils, you're going to need a nice sharpener. I don't even know what the brand on this one is, it's just a sharpener, guys. Like, if it works, it'll do. And then again, in the pastels, all you're going to need is like a black, a medium brown, a light pink, a dark red, and some sort of fleshy peach colour. And I think those 5 colours will see you through any basic face-up. Obviously, if you're wanting to go straight into fantasy stuff, you're going to need a lot more colours. And I'll go over later in the video a good colour set that I think is affordable. And the great thing about these pastels, if you buy them from Dick Blick, which is where I get my stuff from, and most art stores will do this, is they allow you to buy the pastels individually. So you don't have to buy a whole set, you can just pick out the colours that you need. So if you're trying to save money, it might be cheaper for you to just pick out 5 colours that you really need, as opposed to dropping a larger amount of money on a big set of colours, most of which you probably won't even use. And then of course the paints, you're going to need the paints in the same kind of colours. You're going to need a white, a black, a brown, and a red. And again, the brand doesn't really matter. I use Vallejo, and I like the Vallejo model colour because it comes in these little tiny dropper bottles, which I find really convenient. There's a lot less wastage than if you buy a massive tube of acrylic paint. And the other thing you're going to need is of course some sort of gloss. I use Tamiya. It's very cheap, you can get it from the Volk store for $2. But bear in mind that Volks will charge you $10 shipping, so it might actually be cheaper for you to get it off Amazon, even though there are some hobby shops that are selling it there for $5. So you'll just have to do your research. And the other thing I'd recommend having is a kneaded eraser. These things are super handy for picking up extra pastel and for shaping eyebrows and that sort of thing. They're great. You can knead them and you can make a nice big flat tip or nice little pointy tip, so definitely get a kneaded eraser. Then of course you'll need brushes. I've accumulated quite a lot of brushes. You don't need to have nearly as many as me. So I just recommend having something big and fluffy, something medium sized, something for small details, and then maybe some sort of small fluffy brush. Some of my favourite brushes to use are actually makeup brushes. I got some of these brushes from Eco Tools just at Walmart, and makeup brushes tend to be great because they're very small and soft and fluffy. So really where you get your brushes from just doesn't matter. What you need are just like 4 or 5 brushes in a variety of sizes. And the other thing you're going to need, of course, is something to paint your eyeliner on with. The brush that I have for the eyeliner is just a Winsor & Newton Cotman 00 round brush. It's nothing fancy, I just get it from Hobby Lobby. You can also order these online. Dick Blick is a great store to order art supplies from. And that's really your essential kit in a nutshell. You don't need anything more than that to get started. Except of course for a sealer, you will need some sort of sealant to seal all of your layers with. Most people use MSC because you can buy it online at various stores. It does depend on what country you live in as to how easy it is to get, but a lot of people use MSC. You can also use something like a Tamiya spray, which I think is available from the Volk store, and you can also use things like Krylon from your local Hobby Lobby. I use Vallejo. It's designed to go through an airbrush, so that's how I apply my sealant. So if you end up using something out of a dropper bottle like Vallejo, then of course you're going to need to also get an airbrush. And an airbrush is going to be a very expensive thing to add to your starter kit if you're just getting into face-ups, because you're going to spend anywhere from $50 to $100 on an airbrush, and to make the airbrush work you're also going to need to get a compressor, and the compressor is actually where most of your money is going to go. It's going to be about $200 to get a compressor. You can get them cheaper, and it just depends on the amount of PSI you want and how many face-ups you're doing and all of that kind of stuff. The compressor that I have is an Iwata Silverjet, and the airbrush that I have is also an Iwata. It's an Iwata Eclipse. I don't really want to get into talking about airbrushes because it's there's a lot of stuff to it, and it's going to be a steep learning curve. You're going to have to learn how to use it, you're going to have to learn how to tear it apart and clean it and put it back together. So it's going to be an additional learning curve to already trying to figure out the face-up side of things. So I would say don't jump in and get an airbrush straight away. Don't feel like you need to, because you don't. You can get an aerosol can like MSC and just use that and just focus on the face-ups and getting that right, and then later on decide whether or not you want to get an airbrush. Now if you want more pastels, I'd highly recommend getting the 30 count half stick Rembrandt set, and what that is 30 colours, which is more colours than you will possibly need, and they come in that little half stick size. Each stick is half the size of a normal pastel stick. That's why you get twice as many colours in a box, and it's great value for money. Now if you want to use watercolours and you don't want to pick up just those few colours that you need, and you want a larger variety of colours, I'd recommend getting a small watercolour paint palette. This is a Winsor & Newton palette. It has all the colours you need in a nice compact, easy storing size. You could also use watercolours instead of acrylics if you want, and this would cover everything you need. You could do lips and eyelashes, fantasy stuff, everything with just this palette, because it's got a wide range of colours in it. So that is pretty much everything that I think needs to go into an essential face-up starter kit. And of course, as a starter kit, you will add into it and build it up over time, and eventually you'll have a dragon's hoard of materials like I do. I hope that helped you out. I hope it gave you some ideas on what you think you might want to buy and what you think will work for you. There are no right or wrong ways to do any of this. This is just sort of my advice and some of the things that I've done and some of the products that I like and use. Alright guys, happy painting! Bye!